The silent prayer that got a football coach fired took about 15 seconds. The court case to win back our liberty as Americans has taken 5 years so far. Where are we on this important journey? And what's the larger issue that will impact us all? I'm Stuart Shepard. This is First Liberty Live, and our guest today is Hiram Sasser, who's Executive General Counsel here at First Liberty. Hi, Hiram.
Hi, Stuart.
First, just a question about Joe. How's he doing? I know this has been a long road for him and his family.
Well, he's missed, half a decade of football seasons now. It's been difficult on him, and difficult on his family.
Yeah.
It's a part of who he is as a football coach, and that got taken away, and so he's engaged in a tremendous sacrifice to fight for liberty.
And the reason we're having this conversation today is there's an important stop on this journey at a federal appeals court. But I want to unpack this case for those who may never have heard about it before, or who may know a little bit about it, but would like to know a little more detail. So when you talk about it with your friends or your small group at church, you can unpack this. So let's go back to the beginning. What started this whole thing? How did it begin?
Well, how it began was, 8 years before the case even began. Coach Joe was he served in the Marine Corps, and he had retired from the Marine Corps, served in Desert Storm, and decided after a very spiritual moment of watching the movie Facing the Giants
by the Kendrick brothers. It's a great film.
That's right. And he felt called to be a football coach, and he made a covenant with the Lord that he would pray after the games on the 50-yard line to thank him for that, that opportunity to be a football coach.
And importantly, he did that for years.
That's right.
Nobody complained.
No one actually ever complained. What brought the issue to the forefront was a compliment from somebody who saw him pray.
Which brings it into real life real fast.
Yeah. Which means that not to take a compliment lightly, the school district decided to do an investigation.
Yeah.
And they sent him a letter, and they said that they wanted to make sure that he understood he's not to pray with any, students, that what he does on his own time is fine, but he can't pray with any students.
Right.
And Coach Joe agreed with that, because that wasn't originally part of his covenant with the Lord, and so he had no problem making sure that he was always going to be alone, and that his quiet prayer would be silent, and otherwise not available for anybody to hear or know what he's saying.
And my understanding is when he started this, it was just him by himself. And then some players said, "Is it okay with you if we join you?" And he said, "It's a free country. You can do whatever you want." So he didn't invite them. He didn't coerce them. He didn't encourage them. They just kind of joined him. School district said, "Okay, you can pray, but you can't have students around." And coach said, "Okay." And that should have been the end of this, right?
Yeah. And for whatever reason, when he decided that, he was going to pray by himself, again at the 50-yard line, silently, that became not good enough for the school district.
As we like to say, they moved the goalposts.
That's right. I mean, they moved the goalposts on him and said, "Well, now you're not allowed to silently pray for the 15 seconds after the game when you're completely away from students and otherwise not engaging in any other kind of coaching activities." I mean, he could very easily be sitting down to tie his shoe or check his phone or something like that.
And that's an important point we're going to come back to here in just a couple of minutes, but keep going.
But, so at the end of the day, all he wanted to do was honor both what the school district had asked him to do, honor the law, the law and what the school district asked him to do, and honor God. And praying silently for 15 seconds by himself was I think what everyone thought would be the appropriate solution.
But then they said, okay, it can't be seen by the students. So they said you could go inside the school building, which is up the hill. I was just there a couple of weekends ago, and it's a bit of a hike to get to the school building away from everybody. Or you can go up to the press box, which is also quite a ways up in the air from there. None of that made any sense, really, that they would take him away from the players for that length of time and put him out of sight of everybody.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. One of the school officials that was being deposed sort of tried to describe the time limit, how much he thought long it would take to go from the field to the locker room in order for him to pray there instead. And the way he described the time, I just assumed he must be an Olympic runner. Because it's quite a distance, or that he could. So what they told Coach Joe is that, well, you can pray if you go to the press box or go somewhere else where nobody can see you. It's someone seeing you taking the knee. That's the problem that we have. And it's funny because they then try to make this argument, which they've now abandoned, as you'll see why. Yeah. They said, well, he's not. This 15 seconds is taking away from his coaching duties. Well, yeah. Wait, you want him to hike to the building or go up to the press box? Apparently that's okay, but the 15 seconds was not okay. So that, obviously they abandoned that position. And they're just taking the position that taking the knee for 15 seconds because someone can see him and they know that he's praying, that somehow is a problem that they have to stop. And
through all of this, there are a number of questions that people think about, I think, when they hear about this case. And I want to hit you. We'll call this the lightning round, so you don't have to give long answers on these. We're just going to hit you with a few of the questions that come to mind. First, and we've talked about this a little, was he making the players pray with him?
No, he never did that. And certainly, once he received the information from the school district of how they wanted him to conduct himself privately, then certainly has been completely by himself. He was fired. Remember, he was fired for praying silently for 15 seconds by himself.
Yeah, on that exact spot. I took this 2 weekends ago when we were up in Washington. That's the spot, and that's Coach right there.
That's what it would look like.
Yeah. And if you were in the stands, I mean, you see that. He could be doing a lot of things, and we'll come back to that, like you said. Okay, next lightning round question. Some would say, well, student-initiated prayer is okay. I mean, that's been protected by the courts. Wouldn't it be okay for the students then to initiate the prayer and for Coach to join them just to stand alongside and pray silently with them? Why not that?
Well, that's not what this case is about. This case is just about Coach Joe wanting to pray completely by himself, silently for 15 seconds.
And my understanding is the courts have also said, well, you can't stand there and bow your head. You can't show any sign of endorsement. I mean, that's the problem with that scenario is that the students lead the prayer and Coach shows any sign of taking part, then that apparently is a problem according to the legal system.
Well, the good news is that's not part of this case. It's just about him by himself praying silently at the 50-yard line for 15 seconds.
Yeah. A lot of young reporters in Washington asked this question when this case first came out. They said, lawsuits are expensive. Isn't this hurting the school district that he's prolonging this case and costing them all these legal fees?
I hope that's not true. I really hope the school district is not continuing to spending lots of resources just to stop one coach from praying silently for 15 seconds. I would hope that that's not true for them.
Yeah, and they initiated this whole thing. I mean,
we're talking about 15 seconds of silent kneeling.
Now, another question. People wonder, and this still has a long ways to go, but if he wins, does that mean they would offer the job back? And would he take it if they did?
Well, sure he would take it if they. Well, first of all, to win would mean he would be restored back as a football coach. And he would the day that order comes down. Yeah. If we were able to win, the day that order comes down, he will be at practice or the next practice or the next game that's available.
Yeah. And in every case like this, there's always something larger at stake. We focused a lot on Coach Kennedy and his prayer on the 50-yard line. What is the larger issue here? What is it that this will achieve if it's successful at the highest levels?
Well, I think the most important thing here is that you don't lose your religious liberty just because you happen to be a public employee, just happen to be a coach or a teacher. Obviously, there's going to be some restrictions there, but just simply engaging in silent prayer by yourself if you don't have the right to do that as a public employee, then we have some serious problems in this country.
This is about something much larger than one coach at a high school in Washington.
This is about the right of a teacher to be able to pray over her meal, sitting by herself at in the cafeteria.
Yeah.
Because students might see her bow her head and pray for 15 seconds silently over her meal. That if we lose this, then she can be fired for doing that.
Wow. Give me a quick recap of where this has been in the courts so far. It's had quite a journey. Just take me through it real quickly from the district court on up.
Well, before we got to court, we had to file with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Then we had to get a right to sue letter from them.
Yeah. And
then we sued the school district. And unfortunately, we did not prevail at the district court on a preliminary injunction. That means where we're asking for emergency relief right away to get his job back.
Right.
Then we appealed that to the Ninth Circuit. We lost there. Then we appealed to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court, although they denied our appeal, denied hearing it. They didn't rule on it. They just said they're not going to hear it.
Yeah.
4 justices signed a statement saying that this case was really troubling, what happened. And that the courts needed to develop the facts better for them to be able to take a look at it at the Supreme Court. So then we go back to the district.
So, for example, and this is where I wanted to circle back around, they said it wasn't shown in the original case that maybe he could be looking for something a player lost on the field, or a contact lens, or checking the quality of the turf, or just contemplating the game, as people often do after a win or a loss.
Well, they had 3 things to say at the Supreme Court. They said, first of all, we noticed that you haven't really set up the free exercise clause claim, the religious freedom claim.
Yeah.
You brought this as a free speech case. Well, that's because, and the Supreme Court notes, well, that's because our law on religious freedom is really not that good.
Yeah.
And also the same thing for Title VII on the religious freedom front there. They said, well, our law is really not that good there, but you haven't asked us to revisit that. So that's a great invitation to revisit those issues.
Which would suggest that it could change decades of precedent under something called the Smith decision, I think is what it's called.
Well, sure. I mean, we've been plagued by a really bad Supreme Court decision since 1990 that has basically said, look, the free exercise of religion is not a right that's worthy of the same level of protection as all the other rights listed in the First Amendment. Now that's obviously wrong, but it's been the precedent since 1990. This case, as the justices pointed out, could be an opportunity to revisit that question.
Which is a big deal. I mean, there's a reason that people generally don't bring free exercise claims before courts, because it's been so nearly impossible to win them that way.
That's right. And so they basically said this might be a case as an opportunity. They signaled that this is an opportunity to maybe revisit those. They also questioned, well, what else could the coach do other than pray? Could he, check his phone? Could he tie his shoelaces? Whatever.
Yeah.
And they wanted us to go back down to the district court to get that resolved. So we did. We went back down to the district court where we a lot of discovery, a lot of documents, a lot of depositions. We feel like we have what's necessary to win.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we did not at the district court. Now we're back up to the Ninth Circuit.
Monday.
On Monday, the same 3 judges that heard it before are going to hear it again.
Yeah.
So, but we have we have the evidence now, so we'll see how that goes. If that ends up not going well, then obviously eventually this can make its way back up to the United States Supreme Court, and we'll see what they take it.
So what I'm hearing here is there are 3 possible wins. The first one, of course, is for Coach Kennedy, get his job back and be able to take a knee at the 50-yard line as he would like to do, as he pledged to God to do. The second would be that this would be a win then if it were to set a precedent for public employees across the country, school teachers, that sort of thing, to have their religious freedom covered by this case. But the third would be an even larger win, potentially, and 4 of the justices signaled they'd like to do that, maybe, there's no guarantee, that would change how we bring cases to the Supreme Court, to any court for that matter, when it deals with a religious freedom claim, which would be a major, significant victory. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I mean, it's all going to depend on how this goes. We'll see. it's been a long journey, but this case could end up at the Supreme Court, and it could end up essentially overturning about 30 years of the reign of a bad Supreme Court decision from 1990 on religious liberty. And that could usher in a whole new era of constitutionally protected religious liberty in this country. Yeah. We'll have to wait and see.
And this is the first part in the series for those of you watching. Hiram, I really appreciate your insights today. And I've got another question for you before we're done. But we want you to know that on Monday, we have an unusual opportunity because the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals currently, because of COVID, they can't hold court like they usually do, so they're doing everything over Zoom, which the whole country, I think, has been getting more familiar with over time. So because of that, it gives us a rare opportunity to be able to look into the proceedings as they're happening in real time, because they've been sharing these live on the web. So on Monday at 12:45 Central Time, and you can figure it out for your time zone, Kelly Shackelford, the president and CEO and chief counsel here, or chief counsel at First Liberty Institute. He's got so many titles, I never can keep them straight in my head. He and I will sit down right here and we'll talk about what you're about to see as that case unfolds on Monday, and talk about the justices and the attorneys involved and how that plays out. And then we'll give you a chance to watch it for yourself and see how that plays out in a court of law, the work that we do here at First Liberty Institute. So to see that, just go to firstlibertylive.com if you're not there already, and click on the subscribe button, and we'll send you a reminder on Monday to check that out. Also, we want to give you something that we call the Kennedy Playbook. This will give you all the knowledge you need to be able to talk about the case with your friends and family. You can get an inside look at what happened and what this case means for people of faith, and the X's and O's of our game plan for returning Coach Joe to the field. Just go to firstliberty.org/coach-Joe. So firstliberty.org/coach-Joe. And we'll put a link to that in the summary that goes with this particular video. Hiram, as we wrap up, how can people show their support for Coach Kennedy right now?
Well, I mean, I think it would be great for people to, first of all, to pray for this case. I mean, this is a lot of religious liberty for millions of Americans are on the line in this case. Yeah. And I think it's really, really important. I think pray for Coach, pray for his family. You know, I mean, this has been a very, very difficult journey, and it takes a very special person, a very special family, to want to subject themselves to this kind of fight with a very well-funded school district. Yeah. And so it's been a very difficult time, but and pray for our judges that they are able to approach the case with an open mind. And that we get all of their questions answered so that we can get the best opinion that we possibly can.
And also, if this is a case that resonates with the people who are watching, we invite them to support the work of First Liberty. This is what we do.
Oh, that's exactly right. I mean, people, want to support us. That's always a plus, and allows us to not only do this case, but do many other cases like it, fighting for religious liberty.
All right. Hiram Sasser, thank you for making time for us today. Very insightful.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. And thank you. These are the ones that First Liberty stands for.